I just wanted to make sure that you listeners are listening to the Drapedomaniac podcast on doayamedia.com. You are, right?
Peace, family, and welcome to this edition of the Drapedomaniac podcast. This is Ayapo Yapa, the HDIC, that is the head Drapedomaniac in charge. And we are here with my beautiful wife, Angela.
Hey, what's up?
And we have a special guest today.
Empress Nanukali. Peace, everyone. Love and light.
And we are all here to have conversations on how to get off this plantation. Well, again, we were sitting and trying to decide on the subject matter for the podcast because we want to try to start doing the podcast again regularly. And some would even ask it fairly so, well, why don't you do that earlier in the week so that you already have it figured out and you're not ready? To those people I say, don't butt up in my business. Anyway, what I decided when we decided to talk about today is blaming black last. And for me, part of that stems from the young ladies that have been murdered by these white men out here. One of whom they aren't even pressing charges against. And some of the comments that I see are always, well, that's what they deserve, and so on and so on. I don't necessarily feel that way. Like I said, it's about blaming black mass. At some point, it's true people are responsible for their own actions. But at the same time, I look at it like this. How can you be totally responsible for your own actions within a closed system that was designed to jack you up? So anyway, I'm going to go on and give the floor to Angela and let her have her say.
Yeah, I think in terms of our responsibility for ourselves, I guess I kind of have different feelings about it, or I have a perspective on it like this. I think that as long as you are within the confines of this system, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, financially, then it's difficult for you to be responsible for yourself because you don't have any control of anything. But I think ultimately the real world exists outside of this system. This system is just one aspect of the real world. It can be difficult for us to put our hands and our minds on and around the real world. But that, when you're outside of the confines of this limited worldview, then we're able to take responsibility for ourselves. But I think it's challenging to get outside of the confines of this world. I think, for some of us, it's hard to even get out of our neighborhood, get out of the country. It's hard to get out of a lot of things.
Right.
So definitely getting out of the confines of this world is a challenging thing. Did you come up with the concept of blame black last? You're the first person I've heard say it.
I've heard
a lot of people say it. Okay.
I've heard a few people say it, many people, but I adopted that very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Just because that's how I feel about it.
Mm-hmm.
Blame black last. I blame the oppressor first.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Nanukali, what say you?
Well, I say a combination of everything that's been said already. And I've been saying it ever since about 2016.
Mm-hmm.
The only way we can come out of this is to come together.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can't come together, we're stuck.
Mm-hmm.
So, in my view, we need to detach completely from their system, their world. And we can only do that by recognizing the system and their world is not built for us.
Right.
It's not built for our growth.
Mm-hmm.
So in order for us to do that, we're going to have to build our own.
Mm-hmm.
At wherever that is, on our own private island or wherever, we're going to have to do that. If not, we're going to continue to see the same things we see every day in the news. We talk about it everywhere. It's just going to be a part of our life. And it doesn't have to be. So, it doesn't really help. But if we want it bad enough, is the question.
Well, you're definitely singing my song. It's interesting because Angela and I were talking about this earlier today. And I was, I thought back to I'll call it a jump point at which I started coming into consciousness. Mm-hmm. You probably don't know who Jesse Lee Peterson is, or you may or may not know who Jesse. Okay, Jesse Lee Peterson is. I'm not going to go into explaining what he is, but he is. Oh man, he is the most team white, one of the most team white black men you will ever see. Okay, and I like to say, because I feel that it was true, before I started waking up, or before I woke up, I made Jesse Lee Peterson look like Malcolm X, and that's not an exaggeration. Conservative Republican my entire life, was never Democrat, never liberal, and was if you talk to me, I was one of these. Well, the problem with black people. So I said that to say that just because there's a couple things I want to say about that is because of that, I know that some sense can be talked into our people.
Did somebody talk sense into you?
I constantly got input from different places. I just didn't pay attention to it. But you know how I am with, like, I'll say there's things there's things you'll say to me, and I'll spend months still like turning it over and over in my mind, even if I probably couldn't see it at first. So that's just how I process things. Mm-hmm. So my jump point, going back to that, was when I left the Christian church. Didn't lose my faith in Yah or anything like that, but I left the Christian church. And after I did that, my mind started clearing up. And once my mind started getting clear, then I started seeing things for what they were, and it got me to this point. So my point in even saying all that, I know that my point in even saying all that is that when Angela and I were talking this morning, we were just talking about the fact that you got to getting away from them isn't the end of the story. It isn't the end all and be all of it, because if that were true, Black Wall Street would still be where it is. Angela and I say between each other all the time, you get loose from them, and here they come. Mm-hmm. They can get loose from us and never see another one of us in their life, but we try to get loose of them, and here they come. They're obsessed with us. So the first step is to separate from them, get away from them, and then your mind can start to clear, and you can know what to do. Think of ways to defend your communities or whatever, if that's what needs to be done. So I had the floor for a long time. And over to Angela.
I didn't think so. But I think, and when we talk about separation, we talk about spiritual separation, mm-hmm. we talk about emotional separation, we talk about physical separation, mm-hmm. we talk about separating from their foods, from their value systems, from everything that is them. And I think the other side of that is connecting with ourselves. Right. And I think when Nanukali talks about unity, I think being integrated and connected with yourself and whole and at one with yourself as an individual, as a family, as a community, has to be, the other side of separating, mm-hmm. I think, if you're going to exist in a healthy way. I think otherwise you're out of balance. But
in other words, you can't just run from something.
You have to be running to something. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I think, just to kind of piggyback on another thing that you said, Nanukali, Ayapo is pouring water into his water container. So I don't know if you can hear that noise. There is a lot of noise, but it sounded loud.
I'm sorry if you heard hear that.
But hydration is important. So
Very
take this opportunity to take a water break.
Get some water.
Get some water. And we got to take care of these bodies for this fight that we're in, for this work we got to do. But what I was going to say is not only is nothing that they've created for us, it is not for our growth and development, no matter how it appears on the surface. But everything that they've created, as far as I can tell, is against us. So not only is it not for our growth and development, but it contributes to our downfall and destruction, confusion, and alienation from ourselves and one another, from Black us. So that's kind of the only thing I had to add on that. I guess we're doing round robin.
Yeah, we're passing the
one mic. You got the mic, girl.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know anything else to say about it. That's pretty much how I feel about it. Like I said, I've been saying this to them for a long time, and people don't want to hear it. So
can we talk about that? Like I was in the restroom and I heard you saying people don't want to hear the truth. Isn't there a line from a movie? You can't handle the truth.
right. Yeah, from A Few Good Men.
Okay. So I'm kind of curious as to like what you mean when you say that people don't want to hear the truth.
I think a lot of it is self-accountability.
Mm-hmm.
If they know the truth, then they're going to have to fix
Mm-hmm.
themselves.
Mm-hmm.
As long as it's a lie, they can keep into the falseness
Mm-hmm.
and everything. So, I mean, that's just my opinions on it. It's how I've seen it and the people that I've come across.
Well, I think one of the challenges for me, even like with the podcast, is I think that doing work on yourself is to me it's much easier to sit around and be like, oh, Nanukali this, Ayako that, they did this. But then when I have to turn it on myself, or like it's easier to look outside rather than look inside, and it's easier to criticize other people than to work on than to build myself. Yeah, it was something else I was going to say, but yeah. So I mean, that part I can see, and I feel like one of the challenges for me with like the podcast, I'm always trying to. I don't want us to just be sitting around talking, but I want us to be talking in ways that support us all in our growth and development, that encourage us all to grow and develop, and that. Like, so what are specific strategies that we've used? So I guess that would be my question then. Like, when in our personal lives, when we've encountered things that we didn't want to deal with, what are some tools that we've used to have the strength to deal with it? Mm-hmm. So, for example, this might not be a big example, but when I used to cleanse every season, and I noticed that, I was having this whole relationship with food, especially on the last days of my cleanse. As I continued to cleanse, like every okay, so the very first time that I did a cleanse, some people will say a fast. I use cleanse, but where I would do 3 to 10 days of, kind of paying close attention to what I was eating. Maybe doing the master cleanse where it was the lemonade concoction. Maybe doing just raw foods. Maybe doing vegan. Mostly it ended up being raw foods. That seemed to be my default. But when I first started doing cleansing, if I said I was going to do 3 days, on like midnight of the third day, I'd have my bags of chips and I'm just stuffing my face and just rolling around in chips. But I kept with it, even though it was difficult. I kept doing it every season. Mm-hmm. And over time, I became less of a desperado. Like I would break a cleanse and it would be like the next day at 2 or 4 and I'd eat something and it would be soup. But that came over time. And so I guess that was something that I could have run away from because it was kind of uncomfortable. And I was like a little embarrassed that at midnight I was like, rah, 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 and I'm like, okay, I made it to midnight. Right. But so that's something that just kind of jumped to mind in terms of a difficult situation that I had. And, I guess, so my suggestion is stick with it. Keep coming back to it. If it's something that you feel that you need for your growth and development, then be encouraged. It might be hard, it might be tough, it probably is going to be hard and tough. You going to fall down, stuff ain't going to work out the way you think, but keep coming back to it. If it's something that you think is important that you need to do, then keep working on it.
I think one of the important things also, and I had until this moment really considered this, but you might want to take into, when I say you, I mean a person, might want to take into consideration their learning style. Mm-hmm. When when you're coming to, a lot of people use the term coming to consciousness. Because for me, I use Photoshop, I use Premiere, and all these different graphics and music programs and so on. Nobody ever taught me to use those. Mm-hmm. I learned how to use them by using them. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes I watch other people use different things, and I learned to use it by watching them. That's basically my learning style, is hands-on and watching people do. If someone tells me how to do something, I barely retain it, to be honest, if you're telling me how to do something. But when it comes to learning about yourself, about your people, learning to love yourself, and by extension love your people, there's no way I could tell you what my actual path was. Mm-hmm. I know where that starting point was, mm-hmm. but my actual path I can't even tell you. Mm-hmm. All I know is that I started turning more toward listening to my people, mm-hmm. and less listening to theirs. Mm-hmm. But it was like you were even telling me when I became a vegetarian, I was getting off the sugar and all this. It's not so much a matter of getting rid of the sugar or getting rid of the meat. You put more vegetables and fruits on your plate and then put less meat on it.
And that's a strategy that worked for me.
Right, and less shit. You know how I am with sugar now. I don't crave it. I don't eat it. Unless there's something that has it in it. I don't know, but I don't have all this like sugar craving. We got those cookies in the refrigerator. I'm like, we should just go and throw those away because nobody's gonna eat them. I don't know why I bought them. Anyway.
Because you had a craving.
Right. I bought them because I felt like wasting some money. Anyway, but again, I couldn't tell you my path. So if a person was to ask me for a step by step, I'm like, I can't tell you. All I know is that I left the Christian church, and then I started waking up and following a different path that took me to where I am now, from Jesse Lee Peterson to Malcolm X. So.
Okay, Brother Malcolm. Okay.
I won't even. I'm not worthy to take that mantle. But yeah, I love Brother Malcolm.
So the question I asked was,
and Neely Fuller.
You love Neely Fuller.
Yeah.
The question I asked was, is there something that you can think of that you have, a difficult path that you've gone through? Like, I don't want to hear, like, people don't want to hear the truth, because if they hear the truth, they have to do the work. And so then my question was, turning it back on each of us, has there been a time when you didn't want to hear the truth and you didn't want to do the work, but somehow you managed to hear the truth and do the work, push through? And if so, what was that situation? And what can you think of, any strategies that you used, anything that was helpful?
Real quick, I want to apologize. There's a school bus in the background. I can see by the waveform that it's picking up that school bus real tough. So I'm sure that you can be heard through that, but it also...
Don't worry, I wasn't saying nothing anyway.
Yeah, so a difficult time. Well, I think that's been my entire path. But I started my conscious awakening, Genesis, whatever they call it now. Actually started in 2015, but I stepped away from the church like 2008 because my dad was a Southern Baptist pastor. Mm-hmm. And it didn't really start in 2008. I guess I needed to go through some more stuff to get myself prepared completely for it. But it was a process of me just looking at myself and saying, I don't like what I see, and I want to change. So I don't think that we can be taught change within ourselves. I think it's something we have to see and know we need change, and be like, okay, look, I want to change what I need to do, and it'll just come to you. This is what I specifically need to do for my change and my growth.
I think it's definitely individualized, for sure.
Yes.
As you were speaking, I was thinking about abusive relationships, and just the fact that like a typical like man-woman abusive relationship, or even on a job. They're basically convincing you can't do without me. If I ever leave you or you ever leave me, you're gonna fall flat on your face. You're gonna end up in the gutter. You're gonna end up dead. Whatever. And you're not good enough for anybody else. You should be glad that I'm even with you, and so on. And then the person gets out from under them. They're like, and then they start to flourish.
Right.
But that's how it is within a system of white supremacy and dealing with these white folks. They're like, y'all won't be able to make it without it. And I constantly hear white people talking about, and these are like, these aren't like a bunch of rape, low rate race. I don't know how to really say it, but these are supposed to be some of their thinkers who are basically telling our people that
they're the lowest of the low and the racist of the racist.
Okay. But what I'm saying is, it's like your government officials, who will literally say that we can't make it without them.
Right.
We can't create. We can't build machines.
Right.
We can't. Yeah, I can't build an atomic weapon to kill a whole bunch of folk. Yeah, that's what you're talking about. Yeah, you're right. I can't build that. I can't build biological weapons that's going to kill a bunch of folk. If that's what you're talking about, yeah, you damn right I can't build that. Devil. Anyway, but then when our people get out from under them, we find that we start to flourish.
See,
and then they come and burn our towns down and blow them up. Okay, go on.
No, what I was going to say is one of the things I've here, like probably within the last 5 or 10 years, realized is that I thought there was like these low-level racist redneck, from Mississippi, gun-toting, nigger-calling people out there, and then the government was on our side. And now I'm like, the government is those are all the same people, and the system that those people, the elite of the elite, the planter class,
right,
the monster masters, they've designed and maintained the system.
Yeah.
So they're the worst of the worst.
Yeah,
the like you say, the low level people, right, they ain't got no power.
Right. I just don't want to get it twisted. I wasn't saying I wasn't saying anything that disagrees with what you just said. What I'm saying is the people who were saying this, that I've heard saying these things, weren't the live in a trailer park. These are people in freaking suit and tie at the heads of corporations,
and they're the ones who put this system in place. So of course they're saying it.
So
and
they're saying it out loud. And typically, they're thinking it, but typically they won't say it out loud.
Well, I think as you said, once. It's sort of like once you know you got your stuff in place, then you can go on and be who you are.
True.
Once you courted somebody and you feel like you got them, then you can show your behind.
Right.
But before that, you be But then once you feel secure, you just be who you are. As my ex-husband used to say, every new room have clean sweep. So they clean sweep time might be over now. They ready to just come on out and say, but
I feel that we're at the point, or very, very near the point, where I just have this thing in my head, like a man or a woman's having an affair, and the wife
I was thinking about that when I was just talking.
And you're doing everything you can. First, you're doing everything you can to hide it. You're sneaking. Your guys are sneaking around. You're going to seedy motels. You're just going out of town. You're going out of town. You're just doing everything, and then after a while, it gets to the point where you just tell your spouse, yeah, I'm having an affair. And whatever you want to do, you can do, but yeah, I'm having an affair. That's the way that I feel that the society is finally coming to get with us, where they're going to be like, they're going to drop all these pretenses. They're going to be like, yeah, I'm not telling you get this procedure done for your health. There is no actual war. We just want to make money.
And give me your money.
We just want to make money and control you. And I believe it's getting to a point where at some point they're just literally going to tell us that.
Right.
And say, F it. We do.
I mean, they're telling us now, but it's not just flat out like the point.
Right. It's in their action.
Yeah.
It's obvious. I mean, if you have eyes to see and ears to hear, somebody I used to listen to on the radio used to be like, listen with your third ear.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
If you have eyes to see, eye to see and ear to hear, it's right there.
So I that's the thing. I think we're at the point where your mistress calls
Calls the house.
and you're just talking
Angela,
on
can
the
I speak to Ayapo?
Yes, exactly.
But
Who that on the phone?
when I used to watch all this janky TV, like Love and Hip Hop or whatever, but there would be
The
this
flavor of love.
whatever.
Flavor Flav.
Flavor of Love. I remember when I first saw that, and I was just like, I can't
Why?
believe this is on TV. And I
Yes.
still say to this day, why, Flav? Why, Ayapo? Why? But on some of those shows, sometimes when I'm watching the relationships, that's how they look to me. Like on the surface, but the men for the most part are just doing whatever the hell they want to do, and
Right.
they're like, "Who gonna check me, boo?" That's something from New York, one of these reality
Right.
shows. Who gonna check me, boo? And nobody's gonna check them, and she just gonna keep riding. She's, as they say, a ride
Right.
or die.
Right.
Oh, and so let's using that to loop back around to kind of where you started, Blame Black Glass and Ride or
Mhm.
Die. So you were talking about, and I don't really follow those types of stories, but these women who are in relationships with these men and they end up dying.
Right.
Or these
Murdered.
women who are in relationships with these whites and they end up being murdered.
Right.
And so, like, I'm just thinking about Ride or Die, like,
Yeah.
and not to say that dying is the worst thing, because we all gonna die, we talk about that, but they're kind of ride or die chicks, I guess.
Hmm.
You know? I was just playing around with it. Because I don't follow those stories, so I don't
Right.
know much about it.
I-
Swirler's Regret, is that
That's Anjali's. And the thing is, the sad thing about it is that I don't follow it either. But it's just so pervasive that it keeps coming up.
Mm.
It's like unarmed black men and women being gunned down. It's like black people being denied cashing a check at a bank or whatever, or depositing a bank at a check. And I'm not looking for it. As a matter of fact, I'd be looking for like totally different stuff, how to use it, different programs or whatever, or software, and then there it is, because it's just so pervasive. It's like you turn on, especially you go on YouTube, there's like a shooting up on there literally every day.
Your YouTube, and that's because they know the algorithm has, because I have the same stuff online.
Yeah, that could be. That's probably.
Now, I have
true.
a different type of message infusion.
But I will say this: if it wasn't happening, it wouldn't be up there.
That's true.
Whether algorithm notwithstanding, you still see one every day, and there's one every day.
Right.
New one every day.
Right.
That's not good.
That's not good.
I question that because there was a YouTube video like a year before the coronavirus started, and this video was very particular in stating how news channels are all falsified. They're all scripted. They all say the same thing. And these were news channels from all over the world, and they were having like hired actors to come in as like the people that witnessed whatever crime, whatever. So when they're showing all of these murders and stuff live on the TVs, I'm like, I don't even believe this because I don't trust where it's coming from. I don't trust it.
Right.
That's true too.
And I know they'll put stuff out there to just, get us
Stimulate
angry
you
and-
emotionally.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Right.
So
Yeah, I don't.
that's true too.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I don't trust them, and I don't believe. I feel like they say, I don't believe everything I see because I know stuff can be falsified easily, and I know they're liars, so
Right.
They will lie. But I also know that they hate, like they hate black people. And they hate blackness. Well, they like blackness. They just hate black people.
Right.
So,
I guess I should clarify. When I say I see a shooting every day, it's not just black people. It's like white people killing white people too.
And I definitely
it's
believe
just somebody getting shot.
They're
every
violent.
day.
Now they are violent.
They're violent.
That American society is founded on violence. I mean, it thrives on violence. We use violence in our language.
Right.
They are definitely violent. So, I mean, I believe they be out here doing violence, whether it gets to the point of killing or whatever. It's all kinds of ways to violate and be vile before
Right.
you get to the point of actually killing somebody's body. But yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So to that end, going way back to the beginning of the subject, is when I'm blame black last. If you're blaming black first, you're blaming a people who has zero power within this system. The people who actually wield power and create laws, create dictates, and all just this whole thing as far as the way that things happen in the world are white folks, and the earth is crashing and burning under them. It's crashing and burning. Sea irradiated, everything around you irradiated. Weather gone all wonky. Everything in uprest, war all over the place. Disease is rampant, and it's all them and none of us. None of us. And then we want to blame each other. Well, so and so gunned down so and so. Okay, each life is important, but you talking about one or two people against a world of people, a planet of people.
You talking about like if I go out and kill 2 or 3 people, and then y'all make a big deal of the story, and you don't make no big deal of Bush
bombing,
or whoever bombing millions of people.
Yeah, right.
That's just okay. But if I do something crazy because I'm in a crazy society and it makes me crazy, yeah.
Right.
Now, see, when I think of blame black last, I think of it in terms of, and that's kind of what the core question is for me. It's sort of like those of us who have managed to get any sort of light, any sort of consciousness, any sort of ability to break away from that system, to start to break away from some of those ideas. I feel like it's a lot of us can't even articulate what we did. We can't talk about it. We can't help nobody else do it. But then we want, not us necessarily, but then that same person wants to sit around and criticize someone else who is in the dark, who's lost, who's confused, who's alienated from themselves, who hates themselves, who's getting all kinds of... So that's kind of like when I think, like, I'm like, we didn't set this system up.
Right.
This system was set up by somebody else. I feel like we can be victimized by this system. Right. This system presents an extreme opportunity for our growth and development.
Right. But there's this too, though. And I apologize for interrupting, but honey, and I'm not trying to like put you on the spot. I'm not trying to embarrass you or talk down you, but I think you just need to get some self-esteem.
I'm gonna go next door to that store and get it.
I saw something. It was on sale.
$2 million.
Yeah.
$5, $2.
Yeah, so you need to get some self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
If it costs $2 million, if it costs $2, you need to go get you some self-esteem.
Whatever it costs.
That's kind of an inside joke that we always use, because that's the type of advice that we give to our people. This surface advice. Well, you need to get some stuff. Well, how do you do that?
Right. How do you figure it out? How do you like when we're like, well, they hate themselves so much? Yeah, we hate ourselves so much. Have you seen the system we in?
Well, you need to stop hating yourself. Okay,
well,
how do I do that?
Right. And that's so I'm like, how do we blame black lad? I mean, because one of the things that I try to be conscious of, just in terms of that, is, and I've said this, is how you frame things up.
Right.
So if you put your hands, a centimeter around or an inch around, then you're going to see one thing. But if you widen your purview you see more.
Right.
A lot of times, the way we get stories and the way that we get information is very limited. I remember we were talking about that. There was a young woman in Columbus who had a knife, they say, and was lunging at another young woman. And then the cops shot her and killed her. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, and people are like, well, in that case, the cops should have killed her because she was trying to kill somebody else. And I kind of felt like, especially after I did more research, I'm kind of like, when have the cops ever come in and been trying to protect a black woman? So they come in and see a black woman in danger and they gonna kill somebody. I feel like that story don't even, like that's I'm not for them. I'm never for them killing us. There's never any justification for it. I don't support it. And when I started like reading and researching, that child with the knife was in their foster care system. I mean, it was like all kinds of traumas and dramas she had been through. And when you raise the frame up, it's a wonder she hadn't killed a whole bunch of people.
Right.
And I certainly don't. I think that she needed something, but it was not to be shot down by the cops.
Right.
Yeah. So that's for me, it's kind of like. How do we, those of us who have some light, and I feel like there's some value in prayer, but like how do we help, like each one teach one? How do we bring other people along? How do we support other people in their growth and development? How do we help other people to become, to get a little bit of what we have? Because I feel like the more of us who have it, the further we can go as a community. We need each other. We were talking about that. That's how we grow. Absolutely. That's how we develop,
Well, I think you said blame black last, that we have to love black first.
That's the corollary. Mm-hmm.
Right,
so
absolutely.
We have to start there. We don't love ourselves, we're blaming ourselves. We love our enemies,
Right.
We're keeping us oppressed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also that there is just a desperate need for our people to start doing deeper analysis on what we hear. We discussed it, I think, last week, the way that society is all going to the image-based and video-based. People are reading less, and that's on purpose, because when you read things, you will tend to break it apart or tear it apart or think more deeply about it, because you're reading it's activating something different in your brain than if somebody's just telling you something. Oh yeah, that sounds right. That sounds good. And you don't. And after that, you don't think about it any further. But if someone, and I use I'm always using Emmett Till as an example. If you walk and look on Emmett Till's casket, and you're like, man, he looks effed up. And just talk about how bad he looks, right? Without thinking any further back, as far as the people, the entities, because I don't believe they're people, the entities that did this to him.
How did he get there?
How did he get there? He didn't just like walk up and lay in the freaking thing and start beating himself until he was dead. Somebody did this to him. Mm-hmm. And so the question actually for me, and blaming black last, is even if you see a black person behaving erratically, or they walk into some place with a machete and they're swinging or whatever, yeah, they need to be subdued or where so they can't hurt anybody. Okay, whatever.
Or maybe there's some bodies that they need to hurt. I mean, I don't know.
Well, that's not my call. All I know is that after everything is calmed down, you should look further back and say, well, how come they're a maniac? Mm-hmm. How come they're crying? How come they're unhinged?
And the question I always ask is, how come more of us aren't unhinged and maniacs? Because of the pressure in the system that, it's like it's so much directed at us, and there's so much that we have to deal with.
But to me, that's not. It used to be a hard question to answer, but now it's very easy for me to answer. It's because we're sorry about
that. It's hard when you get in a big city.
Right. It's become very easy for me to answer why we don't become unhinged like that. It's because we're effing human beings, as opposed to the oppressor who are not. No, I don't believe they're human. I always say it openly. I don't believe that they're human. Mm-hmm. Not like us. Mm-hmm. I don't believe it. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that's it. That's why though, because we're freaking human. Mm-hmm. That's why we have to be pushed so far before we crack. Mm-hmm. And that's why we're so resilient. It's because we're human. Mm-hmm. So anyway. It got quiet in here.
Yeah.
So
I just wanted to go loop back to blame black last, love black first. and to talk just about, I know from my own personal experience, I feel like even though I grew up in a relatively conscious household and my mother was like, oh, I'm going to give you a short fro when I was in the 5th grade and you're so cute and beautiful. And I probably was. I didn't feel that way. And the environment that I was in did not make me feel that way. Many aspects of the environment, told me that I was, I don't think that's self.
Okay.
Told me, that I was too skinny, too black, my hair was too nappy, my butt wasn't big enough, my skin was too dark. Like I got a lot of messages. And it was a process for me. And I know I talk about this a lot because I actually feel like Black love and starting with yourself and moving outward is the core thing. It was a process for me to come to love and accept myself and to love and accept all of me and to appreciate my beauty and my wonderfulness. And even though it seems self-centered to say, work on yourself, do the work on yourself, in my experience, I don't think I was talking to either of you about it, but in terms of, like, for example, I had an alienated relationship with my father. And I was doing all this work on myself. I was mad at my father. I was doing all this work on myself. And then one day somebody asked me about my dad, and I started talking about him, and I realized I wasn't angry about it. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I'm not really angry. It was a therapist, and the therapist was like, well, you should be angry. It's I could understand if you were angry. I'm like, yeah, I'm not angry. I'm not feeling that way. But it was when I was kind of shocked by that, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized, as I have come to love and accept all of me, I am able to love and accept all of you. Right. I'm not saying it's perfect, but the work, and so I started to really understand more and more that selfish work or that work on yourself is of service to all of us. When I'm better, I can be better for everybody else. And give other people space and freedom and support in doing their work. So,
right.
Do you have specific strategies of self-love?
No, I personally don't. I just, I don't know. I just run myself and our people a lot of slack, and it's like I was telling you about the rope. If you're holding a rope taut, then as a consequence, everything that's behind it in your hand has to be slack. So I'm going to be running somebody some slack, and I'm going to be tight on somebody else. And I'm not going to be tight on my people and running white folks slack. I'll be tight on them and run my black and run my people slack. So that's actually kind of the last word that I have. I'll let you two have the last word.
I want to talk about something you mentioned earlier. You said most of the spiritual conscious people, they're like blaming, like they're still asleep or they're not waking up about the people that are still out there.
I said some. There are some people who are like.
Yeah, I don't feel like the people that's doing it are actually spiritually
conscious, right?
Because you would actually try to help your
and have compassion and empathy. But if we take it off of a spiritually conscious plane, for example, as I travel the world and move around, I encounter people who are like, I got out of the United States, and if you want to stay in the United States, then that's your fault. Or, and so I definitely encounter this blaming what I consider the victim.
Right.
Maybe not as much in spiritual communities. It just depends because, even people, everybody grows and develops in different ways. So I don't want to say, but I still hear that message. Like, well, I figured it out. I figured out how to get my finances in order and get out of the country. So why can't they? And if they want to just stay there, then that's on them. And I mean, I feel like at the moment, I don't have the resources to just, buy everybody's freedom. But I feel empathy. I feel for the person who, I remember talking to a woman who was trying to figure out how to get out. And she had a child who was developmentally different, and she was a single mother. And it was just like, I felt empathy.
Yeah. Some people have health concerns.
Yeah, I mean, and even if it's nothing that you could point your finger to, some people might they just can't conceptualize. And I empathize. I feel like none of us are free until all of us are free. So I don't feel like it's
Right.
cool, well, I figured it out and, oh, well, for you, I feel like it's all of us together. So,
Right.
yeah. And the more of us who, can, yeah. So, I don't know, blame black last, love black first. I don't know what my
Right, I like that.
word is.
Love black first.
Yeah, I like that too. Love black first. So I guess, yeah,
Oh, I was going to say, it just starts with loving yourself first. Even if that's something as simple as rise up every new day, look in the mirror and be like, hey, you know what? I love you.
mm-hmm.
You had a rough past, but today I love you.
Mm-hmm.
Just get up with that every day, and that's going to build and grow, and it's going to change the way we've been conditioned to think about ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all it takes, is just
Right.
reprogram.
I've done all it takes, which makes it seem like it's simple, but I've done mirror work where I looked in the mirror and spoke to myself. When I first started doing it, it was difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I do affirmation work. That is something that has shifted my consciousness. Prayer and meditation is definitely something that has shifted my consciousness. I have a tarot practice, so I ask God for guidance. I ask to know, what messages do you have for me? And I ask to be receptive to those messages and to that guidance. I don't know what other specific practices.
Oh, and another good thing.
My yoga practice.
To step away as much as possible from those messages that's telling you opposite of self-love.
Mm-hmm. So when you notice that something is, when we like you said, well, I'm not going to subscribe to this service anymore because I don't want to pay money for them to abuse me and insult me. And like my mother, I remember my mother saying, I'm paying money to make myself unwell. Like if I'm buying a candy bar or whatever, I'm paying them to make me sick. As you have more consciousness of that, to step away from it.
Right. I just want to do a disclaimer. Her mother doesn't sound like that.
That sounds just like her. That was a spot on imitation. No, how does my mother sound? Can you
No.
Impersonation.
She might listen to it. No.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even try.
Yeah. I think one of the things, like for example, with food that I've noticed is, are we at time?
Yeah.
That it's been really important to surround myself with like-minded people.
Right.
When I'm around people who are eating janky, it has an influence on me. When I'm but whatever. So I think that community is really important. If you find people who have any sense of light, stay around them.
And please, in the sake of, I said I was going to say my last word, but please, in the sake of unity, just like Angela said, being around like-minded people, black people are not a monolith. We don't agree with every single thing that each other says or thinks, but you don't have to.
And you're not perfect, and nobody else is perfect.
To speak for yourself. We don't have to agree on everything to unite. There are some key points, but other than that, you don't have to agree with everything. Our people are not a monolith. We're very creative, wonderful, talented, intelligent.
Umba is creativity.
Right.
I was just thinking about
so there it is from me. And as far as the mirror work goes, there's been many good mornings that I've looked in the mirror and said, "What's that bump growing on my nose?"
But
Don't! Oh, you did it! Oh, you both did it! Oh. Anyway. Anyway. Okay, we're gonna close up. Does anybody have any last thing? Because you're ready to close. So.
It's a big world, and you're fabulous.
Absolutely.
So this has been a great conversation, in my opinion, and I just want to thank everyone who has taken the time to stop and listen to this edition of the Drapetomaniac Podcast. Once again, this is Ayapo Yapa, the HDIC, that is the head Drapetomaniac in charge, self-appointed. Wishing you safety, security, and sanity. Oh, I forgot to, with my lovely wife Angela.
Love black first.
And I will make sure your name is said right, because I always say the name.
You can say Empress.
Yes, Empress Nanukali. Peace and love and light, blessings, and much protection to all.
All right, that's awesome. So, as always, wishing you safety, security, and sanity through separation. And until this time next week, we will see you on the run.
That's me running. And thank you again for listening to the Drapedomaniac podcast. Tune in next week at doiamedia.com. DOIAMEDIA.com. And again, we'll catch you on the run. Peace.